Today we'll be making the best Garrison pairing tier list in Rise of Kingdoms, but first, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to Normal Gaming here, and today, using a tier list that you see here on the screen, we'll be making the best Garrison pairing tier list in Rise of Kingdoms based on my personal experience. So if you disagree with this list, that is fine, but I will try to be as accurate as I can, as I've rallied in Garrison from the day one of my Rise of Kingdoms life, and probably in the past 800 to 1000 days that I was in Season of Conquest type of KVK format. I've rallied in Garrison as a main primary rallying Garrison for cavalry type of troop type at least, and I've faced countless garrisons and rallies, and I also like to collect a lot of reports from other people rallying or garrisoning specific troops to kind of find out what's meta and not. So these are purely based on my experience. If you disagree with me, that is also fine. There's no right answer or wrong answer, but I try to be as accurate as possible based on what I've seen in terms of how the trades went, as well as how balanced that they were based on the equipments and armaments that they had on the game. Now, here's how the tier list works. I divided the categories into 5 different tiers, and SS being the best garrison in Rise of Kingdoms, and there will be naturally only one pairing that can possibly make into the SS tier. So for example, if I want to make the best garrison Hercules and Hercules, which is not possible, but we're just trying to show example here, then this is how it's going to look like. And I'm going to put Hercules right next to Hercules, and then first 2 pairing will be the best garrison in Rise of Kingdoms. Got it? Pretty simple, right? Let's just say if I wanted to make Hercules Zhuge, then that's basically the pairing that I think is the best garrison in Rise of Kingdoms. And so forth. Basically, yeah, that's how this tier list will work. Now, starting from there onwards, starting from the SS tier, S tier means that they're not the best garrison in the game, but they're basically on par in terms of the power level with the SS tier. So it is practically the best garrison in the game, but then again, it's not as good as the technical best garrison in the game, and so forth. And then A tier just means that it is meta, it is very usable. And if you have this garrison set up, you'll do really well unless you're facing against the best rallies in the game, etc. And even against best rallies in the game, you will do pretty well, is what I would consider a meta garrison here at the A tier. Now, B tier is slightly off meta garrisons. Those are some things like, for example, if you're trying to put up a garrison, but then again, your entire camp has run out of archers, right? And you kind of need to run more of a leadership garrison, then you'll kind of mix up here and there and so forth. That's basically what B tier is. And C tier is like barely usable, but it is going to have bad trades overall. But knowing this, you're still going to set this up for whatever reason that you're actually facing. And all of the garrison pairing that I will show you here today will be actually usable in Season of Conquest. It is something that I've seen sometime in the past 6 months at the very least, So it is usable, but then again, it's not. The ones in the C and B tiers are not going to just trade well, and then ones in the SS tier and S tier are going to just trade exceptionally well. It's basically the standard that I have here for you for this tier list. Now, let's just actually start from the very top, SS tier. So the best garrison Rise of Kingdoms right now, I think, goes without a surprise to Gorgo and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Now, I get it. There is a new rally commander that is called Shapur I, and paired with Asher Vanapal, Gorgo Tokugawa is technically beatable, right? It is going to trade better, but there's a couple reasons why I think Gorgo Tokugawa is the best garrison in the game. For one, they're the only garrison pairing that can use the full potential pincer formation, which is the best formation in Rise of Kingdoms at the very moment. And then 2, because they do smite damage, which scales off of normal damage, and because they both have somewhat of a way for them to kind of increase their normal damage to a certain point, they're very good at anti-swarm as a pairing. Also, at the same time, Gorgo does smite more so of the smite damage, whereas Tokugawa actually does more of a shielding. So they do have a good balance of shielding and DPS at the same time. And also, they do have a lot of great buffs here and there. They basically have everything that you need. If you're a rally lead like myself for cavalry, For example, if you're using, let's say, Attila Subutai against Gorgo Tokugawa, and even if you get reinforced more so than the Gorgo Tokugawa, you're going to trade a lot worse than Gorgo Tokugawa. The only way that you can actually beat this Garrison pairing is with very well reinforced Shapur the First primary and then Ashurbanipal secondary, and that is the only way that you can actually beat this. Before Ashurbanipal and Shapur became like a thing, the only way that you can actually beat that kind of Garrison was just by taking the bad trades overall and then, swarming the heck out of the Garrison. And you're going to have a lot of deaths just by nature, but you will be able to kind of break it. That was kind of like the only way that you could do it. Now, because there is Shapur and Ashurbanipal, if you're on the winning side and you can actually reinforce that rally, then you can actually trade better against Gorgo Tokugawa. So that's why I put Gorgo Tokugawa at the SS tier. The only downside of this Garrison, though, is the fact that it is a mono-troop Garrison. So if your kingdom or your camp is actually missing a lot of infantry and you were fighting the KVK tour for a very long time, and let's say you're in either King's End or in past 7 opening, whatever the case might be, you might actually run out of infantry troops for you to actually, refill Gorgo Tokugawa as much as you would possibly want to. So that's the only downside of it, the fact that it's a mono-troop type Garrison. But outside of that, this is a very, very solid Garrison, and it is probably the best Garrison in Rise of Kingdoms. I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. Now, with that said, let's just go ahead and move on to the S tier. Now, I think the best alternative to the best Garrison in Rise of Kingdoms, which is Gorgo Tokugawa, is actually Gorgo Hera. Now, granted that Gorgo Hera does get countered pretty heavily against Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal, it does exceptionally well against all the other rallies in the game. And also at the same time, it does provide you a little more flexibility than the Gorgo Tokugawa Garrison, because you can mix other troops in there. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still better off if you put infantry units more so in Gorgo Hera, because I think Gorgo has infantry specific buffs. But then again, even so, Gorgo Hera, you can actually just go by with having 50% of infantry and 50% of everything else, or even like 70% or 30% of infantry, and then the rest of it is just mixed troop. So this gives you that mixed troop option, and that's why I think Gorgo Heraclius does deserve that S tier spot on this chart. Now, with that said, though, I will say there's another S tier rally Garrison pairing that I can put up there, and that is Eleanor paired with Hera. Now, Eleanor Hera, in the last update, before Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal came into the game, I would have actually put Eleanor and Hera pairing into a much lower tier, but because Eleanor does exceptionally well against Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal, but granted that Shapur the First does counter Hera, and whatever he does with all those shielding mechanism, I think still the best way for you to actually fight against Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal nowadays in 2025, well, August of 2025, that is still using Eleanor with Hera, in my opinion, as far as what I've experienced within my current KVK with the new KVK technology and so forth. So I'll put Eleanor Hera up at the S tier just because of the fact that it is probably the best counter that is available for you at this very moment in the game against the best rally in the game, which is Shapur the First paired up with Ashurbanipal. It is going to do much worse against Attila Subutai, though, just because of the fact that Attila does have the skill damage reduction, I think, on one of his skills, and also at the same time, it does have a little bit of normal damage reduction, but then again, it is actually still kind of weaker on the weaker end against a lot of swarms. So if you get swarmed down like crazy as Eleanor Hera Garrison, although it will still proc Eleanor's skill a lot more, but then again, it does have the internal cooldown, so at the end of the day, I think it will do like kind of worse than Gorgo Hera against a swarming rally at the end of the day. So Again, S tier, not the best garrison in the world, not the best garrison in Rise of Kingdoms, but then again, it is still one of the best alternatives to garrisons in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, with all that said, let's just go ahead and move on to the A tier. Now, in the A tier, I think the best garrison that I could think of for the A tier is actually Choyong paired up with Heraclius. Now, Choyong paired with Heraclius is a very interesting garrison. It does a lot of shielding, it does a lot of healing, and also at the same time, it does true damage. So it does various types of mixed damage to the enemy. And it does have a little bit more sustainability than other garrisons, just because of the fact that Choyong does have a lot of healing kind of built into the game. So again, if you have a lot of healings, your garrison will last a lot longer. And then sometimes in garrison situation, it is actually better for you to actually stay alive as long as possible rather than, take better trades because you're trying to do something else somewhere else, So that's why I would put Choyong, Heraclius at the A tier. And I think that pairing does work really well with one another. Is there any other pairing that I could think of that I can put up there? No, I think that's pretty much it. In terms of all the meta garrison pairings that I could think of, that is either meta or best alternative or the best garrison in Rise of Kingdoms. So yeah, everything here. If you put any pairings of those in the game right now into a garrison, I would say that is a very solid garrison pairing in the game, no matter what you do with those. So keep in mind, just look at all those garrison pairings up there. If you see something else outside of that, then just know that when you walk into a garrison at the end of the day, you're gonna get a slightly worse trades at the end of the day. Just know these. But yeah, those 4 pairings I would say are top-notch, very meta garrison pairings that I could think of right now off top of my head. Now, moving on to B tier. So those are kind of meta garrisons, but then again, those are slightly off meta. They're still usable in today's meta, but then again, if you have like on par gears and armaments against your enemy, then you're gonna trade slightly negative, or you could trade positive, but then again, as long as you have same level of reinforcement as well as gears and all that, you're gonna try trade slightly less than less in favor of yourselves versus the enemy. And I would say the first B tier garrison that I would put in to this tier list is this Choyong with Daido. Now, Choyong with Daido is a very interesting one. It's going to do really well against, I would say, Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal, because it doesn't have any like crazy shielding stuff. But the damage output that is actually on Daido is actually a little too low for you to actually use in today's garrison, in my opinion. She does have a lot of other kind of benefits that she brings into the field with her skill set. But then again, I think the damage output that Daido does could have been a lot better. And I think that's the only reason why I will put her at B tier. Choyong and Daido at B tier. They're really good as a pair, but it's just not as good as Choyong with Heraclius. I don't think it's like really something that I would put in as meta. But yeah, so that's why I would put those 2 pairings at B tier at the end of the day. Now, another pairing that I'll put at B tier, and I know some of you might actually think this is biased that I'm actually putting this up there, is Eleanor with Yanziska. Now, the only thing that this pairing does really well against is one thing. It is just Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal. If you're going one-on-one against them, let's say you're in a pass guarding situation. You're garrisoning Eleanor with Yanziska against Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal, then you're gonna just trade really, really well. But if you have Eleanor, Yanziska, and if you're just garrisoning a flag, then just with 0 doubts, you can just get swarmed the heck out of on the flag, and you will just have no resistance to any sort of kind of flag, because they don't really have a counter attack damage buff that you can get from Heraclius and so forth. So yeah, this is very specific garrison that is designed for Shapur the First and Ashurbanipal, and it is good on the pass at the end of the day, and it can be used on garrisons if you have the field and the enemy is just sending you one-off rallies. Let's say they're trying to kill your farms, whatever. Then you can still use Eleanor and Ziska, and your trades will be really good. But it has to be on one-on-one situation. But when you're garrisoning, most of the times you're gonna be the one who's on the defense. You're gonna be the one who's turtling. So that means that when the rally comes, then you're not gonna really be able to have that one-on-one situation that you're gonna have. So that's why I would put this pairing at B tier. But it does massive skill damage. There's no doubt about it. But then again, it's just the fact that it has zero anti-swarm built into this kit. It is why I would put those pairing at B tier. Now, with that said, I was thinking about putting YSS and Heraclius into B tier. The really good thing about this pairing is simple. You can actually put anything on there. And people with leadership gears usually actually make this pairing, whereas they put YSS Heraclius in there with leadership gears or let's say infantry gears critted to leadership gear at the end of the day. And then they'll just slap it onto a garrison and fill with mixed troops as much as possible just to last as long as possible on the garrison. It's not the best garrison, the best trading garrison that you will find at the end of the day. But it is something that is very flexible because of the fact that you can just put in just even siege in there, and then you'll just trade really well. No, you'll not trade well. You still be able to stand that garrison as much as possible, right? So YSS Hera, but the thing is, you're not gonna really trade well at the end of the day. Against, let's say you were facing, I rallied against this garrison, right? But let's say you're facing against Attila Subutai, right? Then I think your trades just are gonna be really, really good. So I'll actually put it at the very first slot of C tier. I mean, again, everything that I'm about to show you, that I'm showing you here on the screen on this tier list, is all usable. Let's just make that very clear. Everything that I'm showing you here is all usable, but it's just a matter of whether or not it's gonna really trade well or not. If it's not on this tier list at all, most likely the tier list, those commander pairings for Garrison was not gonna perform well, or I haven't even seen it on Season of Conquest Garrison in the past 6 months, so they're not included. So those are all kind of somewhat meta garrison pairing, just so that you have the right idea in there. But then again, YSS Hera, very good and very versatile garrison that you can think of. If with the right equipment, I think it can do really, really well. And if they release another garrison pairing for leadership at the end of the day, I think this could do really well. But I think in terms of trades against things like Attila Subutai or Shapur Ashurbanipal, I think this is not going to do really well. Now, with that said, some people still like to use Xeno Hera because Xeno has a lot of healings, and it's kind of like using Choyoung and Hera, but the infantry version of it. And I've seen this happen. I don't think it's really a good garrison. I'll put it at the very last spot over here in the C tier. It does what it does, which is healing and shielding, right? It does try to last as much as possible. But then again, I don't think it's actually a really viable garrison in 2025, in my opinion. And yeah, I think that's basically it. I don't think this is a really good idea at the end of the day. And yeah. That's why I'll put it at the very last slot of the C tier. It's still usable, I think, to a degree, because it does have specialty, which is healing and shielding. But then again, if you're going to heal and shield at the same time, why not use Choyoung Heraclius, right? And do that true damage that you're craving. But some infantry garrisons do tend to sometimes use Xeno Hera. And I don't think it's really good. I think it deserves the last spot on this tier list at the end of the day. But then again, I think I've seen it used a couple times. And sometimes it works, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's really that usable at the end of the day in today's meta. What else can I think of? I would say Daido Zuge was used in the past before they came up with Choyoung as like the only kind of like the DPS archer garrison at the end of the day. But I don't think it's really viable anymore. I haven't seen that like garrison pairing for the past like a month or so, past like few months or so. So I'll just actually take that down because Daido Zuge, it just does damage. I mean, in Garrison, you gotta think of all the other things outside of just, doing damage. Like this has zero, this doesn't really have that many counter swarm measures and stuff. So I'll say, well, it was there. I'll actually put it up there just in case, right? It was usable before. I don't think it's usable anymore. So I would actually put it over there. So yeah, so that was pretty much it for all the rallies in Garrison that I could think of that I've seen in the past 6 months. Looking at it now, I think this is pretty accurate. Again, just because it's not in an A, S, or SS, it's not a bad Garrison. But then again, everything here is somewhat usable in Season of Conquest, but anything that's in B or C, in specific situations, if it gets countered by a good rally or a counter rally rather, it's just not going to trade well. Is what I was trying to make this tier make it out of. Everything that is here is technically usable in today, 2025, August of 2025. But then again, at the end of the day, I don't think they're really going to trade well if they're in the C tier, or maybe some of them in the B tier as well. All right, I hope you guys actually enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, please go ahead and drop a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And as always, I'll see you all in the next video. All right, peace.